Hello, Emily, and thank you so much for joining me on my podcast today.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor. And especially because I mixed up the times last time with the time zone change and the issues. And yes, I'm very grateful.
We're living the life. It's real. It's real. No worries. So, Emily, could you share with my listeners about your personal story, how you end up doing what you're doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's been a bit of a winding road. I started in the fitness and nutrition space while I was still working a corporate job. So I was getting certified in fitness and teaching boot camp classes. And then I went back to school for nutrition, all while I was still working full time. And then I started my online business as a bit of a side hustle with mostly nutrition. And then I finally got to the point where I was able to quit my full-time corporate job. And I was doing the nutrition thing for about 6 months after that. And it just felt like something was stuck. Like things weren't flowing to me easily, even though I was really passionate about nutrition. Somebody would ask me to, come up with a webinar idea, and it would take me practically days, even though I had all this information floating around in my head.
Hard, right?
It just felt, it felt really difficult, and I couldn't understand why. Then around this time, so I'd been doing the online thing full time for about 6 months by then. And then I found out on Christmas Eve of that year that my partner of 9 years had been having an affair for off and on with his previous girlfriend for our entire 9 years together. So that changed things. that shifted things a little bit. So we owned, sorry?
I was like, totally, I believe, because I was shocked. I just looked to my screen. I'm like, oh, 9 years in a row. Okay, let's move on.
Nine years. Yes. There was, I ended the relationship right away. There were a lot of like Hollywood level of details that were uncovered in the days and months that followed. It was a pretty crushing blow. And what it did, though, was I still argue that it's the best thing that ever happened to me. And it really made a lot of other things in my life crystal clear about the life that I had been dreaming about and wanting to have that would never have been possible as long as I stayed with that person. So after I ended the relationship, we had to work together for a few months. He moved out right away, but we had to work together for a few months to get our house ready for sale. And as soon as it was sold, I took off to travel for 6 months. And I ended up landing in Bali and then just staying there. Oh, wow. That wasn't really the plan either, but and I loved Bali so much. I just developed a community there so quickly. It kind of shocked me. It caught me off guard. But I just felt, and I felt that my energy was really pulling me there, and I wasn't ready to go anywhere else. So I've actually just come back from Bali a couple weeks ago. It was actually a planned trip back to Canada anyway, but I got home and 24 hours later, the global pandemic was called. So I feel like so now I'm in Canada again. Yeah. So I've been like all over crisscrossing the globe for the last like 8 months or so. But I am very happy to be in Canada to kind of weather this storm. But in and amongst all of this, I feel like I skipped a couple parts. One of the priorities that became really clear to me in the wake of the relationship ending was that nutrition was not right for me. It's always going to have an important part of my own life, but I wasn't excited to teach it. And what I was excited about was that by that point, I had launched 2 separate podcasts. One was my first one with a co-host, and then we ended that and I launched a solo one. And they had done really, really well. And entrepreneurs kept approaching me saying, I can't even launch one. How have you done 2? And how are you doing this like with such ease? And not that it's easy, by the way, I don't want to give anyone the wrong impression, but I realized that was where I lit up. That was when people would ask me those types of questions, I would get so excited that I could just talk for an hour and just be so passionate and fired up about it. And I'm like, okay, this is clearly telling me some things. I've obviously already learned some lessons about needing to tune into my intuition more.
Yeah.
My intuition is guiding me towards this, and this is what I want to do. So I completely pivoted my entire business. I figured everything else was changing, and the floor felt like quicksand under my feet, so I might as well change that too. And it started basically a completely different business. And yeah, I've been doing that ever since, teaching entrepreneurs how to launch podcasts and how to share their personal stories. I tend to attract an audience that is very willing to have tough, hard, and uncomfortable conversations. And I teach people how to share their stories in the sense that it is kind of finding the line between the share versus the overshare, and setting boundaries around your personal story as well, and how to do that in a way that's going to have a really positive impact in the world.
Fantastic. What a journey, eh? Wow.
It's been an adventure.
I realized, like, while you were talking, I heard 6 months, the number 6 was coming a lot of times. I don't know if you ever realized this, but
oh really? Okay.
You've done a couple of things. It's something with the connection, I believe.
You're right. That's true, because I was doing the nutrition thing full time for 6 months. Then I ended the relationship, and then I spent 6 months working with him to get our house ready, and then I left the country. So yeah, that's true. There's 6 month increments.
6 months traveling, and I'm like, wow, 6. So
it was actually 8. Yeah, I've been living in Bali for about 8 months, so that one's a little bit different. But yeah,
you add more too. So I just think, like, your journey was 9 years to come to the realization that something was wrong. And then every time you're changing something is less time now. And it's amazing, because for transformation, for changing, for improving, it's taking less, because you learn a big lesson. This is my own opinion, because it took you a long time, but when it came, that's it. No more.
It's true. It's funny how rapidly things became very, very clear to me in so many different realms. And I have a lot of friends who, especially friends who have met me since I ended the relationship, who have said it feels like your life started when the relationship ended. Right. And I said, I kind of feel that way in a lot of ways, like as though I was still myself in the relationship, but I was a watered down version of. And I knew that I was capable of so much more. And I just wasn't realizing that the relationship was a really significant part of what was holding me back.
Yes, I totally agree. And I believe that if more people going through these situations, and I hope they can listen our podcast and feel encouraged to really see exactly how they're living, analyze, and try to find your ways, your whys, and how and when to change if it's needed change, because this is important for us, to any woman or any man, I don't know, but to a human being in the world. Thank you for sharing this story, because it's quite, I believe was hard. It was harder to talk about it before than now, right? How long it's been already since you left your relationship? You've been doing this journey?
About a year and 4 months. So not even quite a year and a half. Yeah.
Yes. When you look back and you look today, how you feel from 1 to 10? 10 is super amazing.
Just overall, you mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess in different realms, or yeah, overall, I feel incredible, like better than I've ever felt in my life. Like at least an 8 minimum, if not closer to 10.
Amazing. That's it, Emily. I'm with you. So now let me ask you, how to build a business around the podcast, because you told me that you run 2, and how do you build a business around the podcast?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that it's something that is unique to everyone. So there isn't a cut and dried answer to this. It is going to look a little bit different for each person, each individual, each business, and it depends on your priorities, how you want to create it, all of these types of things. But what I think is really important is to recognize that a podcast can be such an incredible pillar in your business to build trust. Because particularly in the online space, in business in general, but especially in the online space where there can be a lot of smoke and mirrors, we are very much in the business of building trust. And if we don't gain the trust of our people, they're not going to work with us. So a podcast is such an incredibly intimate experience because we're being given the gift of speaking straight into someone's ears. And it's something that we typically reserve for friends and loved ones in the past. But now the entire world has opened up and we can access, celebrities, coaches, mentors that we would never otherwise be able to speak to. And they're talking straight to us and it starts to feel like they're our best friends. Yeah. So yeah, it often feels like a podcaster is really close to us, even though they have no idea who we are. So it's a really powerful way of gaining that trust and giving people a little bit more insight into who you are on a slightly more personal level too. It doesn't mean that you have to spill your guts on the internet or anything like that, share super vulnerable stories like I sometimes do, but it gives people even just the smallest sense of your everyday life. And that goes a long way towards building trust as well, because I often find that in a podcast, compared to if I'm, writing a blog post or something like that, when I'm doing a podcast, it feels so much more conversational that I'll just end up dropping in little random tidbits sometimes about who I am or something about my personality or my life. And that's not something that would typically come out in other mediums or on other platforms. So podcasting is really unique in that way as well, that our people start to feel like they know us so much more deeply. And that goes such a long way towards building a business. Wonderful. Because then people are going to be more likely to want to work with us because people hire the coach, they hire the individual. They don't hire, whatever service you offer and the coaching. They want you. Yeah. People can go to anyone on the internet. People can just go to their Google search bar if they want to learn something, but they want to learn it from a specific person. That's why people hire coaches. So they want to hire the person that they feel that they know and the person that they trust. And podcasting is going to take you farther in that category than you could ever imagine.
So powerful, because I tell you myself, I agree. I totally agree with what you're saying. And I've been in contact with so many people that I never thought, or I can't imagine that I will be. Now I can see that I can see them in the future somewhere. Maybe we're going to meet in a conference or in a webinar live somewhere, but I never thought I'm able to just have a simple chat about ourselves, about our life, like I'm doing right now with you. Who in the earth I would think, oh my God, I'm talking with Emily right now, and I didn't know you before, but I read your story and I went to your website. But just being here with you, listening you, it makes a huge difference, makes more difference than just checking your website or going into your pages. It's such a natural thing and powerful thing.
It is. And the other really, amazing part that a lot of people don't talk about with podcasting is the power that it gives you to connect with others. Yeah. So not only with your listeners, but with your potential guests or with other people in the online space. And it also gives you a certain degree of credibility right off the bat, because even though technically anyone can start a podcast, which is part of the joy of the platform, there are only, not everyone does it either really well, or not everybody does it consistently either. So you really kind of separate from the herd when you make the decision to start a podcast and you show up consistently for your people, which I always tell people is one of the most important things that you can do, is to just show up. That's going to go such a long way with building the trust, building the credibility. And then if you choose to have guests on, you also end up establishing really significant relationships with these people, because you're having a conversation with them basically one-to-one for anywhere from 20 to 60 minutes usually. That's not something we typically would ever be able to access with certain people except for having a podcast. So that's a really amazing part of that. And everyone wants to be on a podcast right now. There has never been a better time to start a podcast, because so many people want to be on podcasts. You would be shocked at the people that you might think are out of reach that would actually love to be in your podcast. And I have all kinds of strategies and stuff around that as well. And I also tell people, don't focus on the follower numbers either. So it's great to bring on a big name guest, but sometimes the guests who have the smaller followings will actually push the episode for you far more and have like this really fantastic story. And they also might not be nearly as rehearsed telling it either. So it can actually come across as a lot more raw and vulnerable in the best possible way, as opposed to feeling like some spiel that somebody has rattled out, 100 times before then. And it can actually make for an even better interview. So I always tell people, like, don't choose your guests based on follower numbers. Choose your guests based on what you feel your audience can benefit and learn from them the most. That has to be the biggest factor.
Yeah, I totally agree as well. So I was about to ask you one question. I will tell you what exactly, but I'm sure it's going to be yes, the answer, because I believe, and I'm sure that you yourself, you believe that you're making an impact, because we've been talking about this with your podcast.
I certainly hope so. Yeah, I mean, I guess I feel like I'm the wrong person to judge that necessarily, but I certainly feel as though I am, and it certainly that certainly aligns with the messages that I get from people on a regular basis. Some of the DMs that people send me and messages just blow me away. Especially when I came out with my more personal story, I was overwhelmed by the incredible, not just support for me, but the people who were coming out of the woodwork to tell me how my podcast had changed their life, like their daily life in some way. And it never ceases to amaze me. When I get messages like that, it just really puts things in perspective and brings it all back to why I do what I do, which is why I've built my entire platform around the concept of having an impact. Because if you show up in the world to have an impact, the money will come, the business will come, all of that will come eventually, but you have to come at it from a really genuine sense of purpose and impact and service. And that will pay you back tenfold in a wide variety of ways, and in better ways than you could ever even imagine.
Amazing. Yes, so true. And this is so powerful especially when we are able to share our own stories, which change people's lives, because there's a lot of people around the world with the same story, not the same, but similar, and they just need this. They need this. That's why nothing happens for a reason without a reason. And when we place this podcast online, I'm sure it's going to be someone or more than one person that will be impacted by our conversation today. Thank you, Emily, for this.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I certainly hope that it impacts someone. And that's the thing, is that a lot of times we don't see the impact that it has. So it has to be a belief in yourself and a belief in what you're doing and how you're showing up in the world. That has to be the intrinsic motivation that what you're doing comes from. And that's going to give you by far the biggest benefits in the long term.
For sure. And you are a business coach, right?
I do. Yes. So I do business coaching as well. And that can involve a podcast, or it might not too. So a lot of what I do is certainly related around building a podcast, but also speaking your truth, putting your message out into the world in a powerful way. That doesn't necessarily mean a podcast for everyone. And there are people that I will flat out tell, I'm like, I don't think that a podcast is the right fit for you, but here are some other great avenues that are going to be a good fit. So yeah, business coaching is a huge part of what I do as well.
And when you do business coach, is with individuals or you do with groups as well?
Actually, your question is timely, because by the time this episode comes out, I am launching a brand new group coaching program that I've never done before, and I'm really, really excited about it. Yeah.
That's awesome. And apart from podcasting, how do you connect with your audience?
Honestly, Instagram is a really big part of it right now. And I don't think that, social media is always changing, right? So I don't think that that's necessarily going to be the case forever, but Instagram and Facebook groups are a really good way to go. But Instagram is definitely the winner right now. I'm actually doing a daily live on my Instagram and Facebook every single day at 8 a.m. Eastern until this whole pandemic situation is over.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm talking about things like online business and podcasting and entrepreneurship and some of the struggles that come with that, and mental health, and just kind of trying to all feel our way through this whole madness that's happening. So that's been a really beautiful way to connect with people as well.
I've been on your lives on Facebook. Really enjoyed.
Oh, amazing. That's awesome.
You were so calm there. It was sunny. You're living.
That's right. That's right.
I remember. I think was the day you were talking about, one of the days you were talking about mental health during this situation, during coronavirus. I think was the other day, because I went twice at least, and I really enjoy your way of talking with people. You got a voice.
Oh, thank you. Oh, that's so kind. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
You see, I've been there. I've been checking it. And I will keep going there. I don't know if you've done your live already today, but let me know.
I will. I did do it today, and that was how I missed our appointment the last time, was that I said it at the same time, but I thought that you and I were talking an hour later, and yeah. So it is done for today, but
no worries. You also, Emily, you send me a promotion, or do you want to talk a little bit for my listeners to, if you got 2 links that you sent me about promote podcast for impact and room to grow podcast. What is that about?
Yeah, so I forgot to even mention that part, is that my podcast is the Room to Grow podcast. So I'm the host of the Room to Grow podcast, and over there we talk about a lot of the same things I just mentioned that I discuss on my live. So things like online business, entrepreneurship, podcasting. I bring on some really great guests. We talk a lot of mental health and mindset stuff. I do solo episodes as well as guest episodes, and I have a blast with it. That's the other part I really love about podcasting, is that I feel like it opens up the door to your creativity, because you can have a little bit more freedom on a podcast where you don't have to be quite so niche down sometimes, and it can just make it even more fun, especially because us entrepreneurs are so multi-passionate. We want to talk about so many different things, but we know that we kind of need to niche. So a podcast is a great way to open that up a little bit. And then Podcasting for Impact is my online course that teaches entrepreneurs not only how to launch a podcast, so it of course walks you through all the basics, developing your idea, the cover artwork, submitting to Apple, Google, Spotify, all the places, editing, teaches you how to do all of that. And then a huge part of the course is about how to build your business around it, how to share vulnerable stories, how to build relationships with guests and listeners to really maximize that trust factor, and how to do it all sustainably. Because without the sustainability factor, there's no point in putting in all of the work and effort. And that trust factor, you want to be able to sustain that long term. So, and to continue to build upon it and to grow. So I'm really passionate about that side of things, and I've been podcasting a long time, and I see a lot of mistakes being made, and I wanted to put something out there that would really help people to absolutely thrive with a podcast, and to do it in a really powerful way, to share their message, to share their voice, and to have that really significant impact that we're talking about.
Fabulous. So people can go into Podcasting for Impact and get some freebies there, like how to run or subscribe or register for something, right?
That's right. Yeah. I have like various resources and stuff listed on my website, and then there's also the course itself too. And if somebody is just starting out, I'm actually adding on. I actually also offer podcasting power hours, where we can just do a single hour with each other and really do a deep dive into like one particular issue that you're struggling with a podcast, and I can walk you through everything that you need, and in that 1 hour. And that's a great place to start too, if you're just kind of dipping your toe in the water. Great.
Okay. Yes. So they can get the resources, and they also, you were saying that they can get a 1 hour call with you, something like that.
Yeah. So if that's the route that somebody wants to go, they can definitely set up a 1 hour call with me, and then we can do a deep dive into whatever it is that you're struggling with the most.
Fantastic. And one question that came up just now was about, because you are a business coach, and I'm sure I've got listeners that are looking for business coach. Do you run a free call just to get to know the person at the beginning? Or
I do. Yeah. Yep. I definitely do, because I work with people in such like an intimate way. I want to make really sure that we're going to be a good fit for each other. And I will definitely turn people away sometimes because it's either not going to be the right fit for them, or we just maybe don't align. And I want to see them succeed. And if I don't believe that I'm the right person for you, I will not just take your money and run. So I always want to make sure that this is a win-win situation for everyone involved. So yeah, when I'm doing like the higher end business coaching, I definitely will do a free call with people to establish, what their biggest needs are, what they are working towards, their goals, and to get to know them a little bit, because it's also a personality thing too. You want to make sure that you are going to work well together in all different capacities.
For sure. Yes, so that's all. I'm so glad that we've been having our podcast. It was amazing. And I want to let my listeners know that all the information about Emily will be on the description of the podcast, which is coming out on 1st of May. So it will be amazing. You can get in touch with her through social media or email, or just jump into the website, the Podcast for Impact or Room to Grow podcast, and get in touch and listen and get the resources. Just find your way to get connected with Emily. Thank you.
Oh my gosh.
So much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Yola. I really appreciate the opportunity. It was a pleasure.
Me too. And I wish you all the best, continuously success, and keep traveling and keep enjoying Bali and living the life.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, hopefully I can get back to some traveling hopefully we can all get back to everyday life and some traveling in amongst there too, once all of this calms down a little bit.
Yeah. Hopefully everyone will be able, I don't know, it's going to be a crazy time when we start to go out.
It is.
Oh my
It really is. Yeah, it's going to be, this whole situation is just so bizarre sometimes, but it's a new normal and we're adjusting.
I'm missing so much the hugs, and I will be hugging everyone, I'm sure, because I always am.
Oh my gosh, me too. I just posted that yesterday. I'm like, guys, check on the huggers in your life because we're hurting a little bit.